You are listening to a man with COVID-19. That's right. It's the UploadVR Gamescast, which we can do without social distancing because we're virtually in a room together. So I'm not infecting Harry Baker,
It's
who's sitting
amazing
right next to me
technology.
right now.
What a
Just
trooper
incredible,
going
isn't it?
forward with COVID. Look at you.
It's been a very hello everyone, I'm Jamie, by the way. It's a very mild case of COVID.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not been a big one. It's my
yeah,
I think it might be my third bout, even though the first time I was symptomless.
yeah,
Um
right.
Last time it kind of knocked me out, and this time 3 jabs in and we're doing all
Yeah,
right. Well
putting your
enough.
body through it.
Yeah, well enough to podcast
Yeah,
and play 2 VR games. Um,
yeah,
Thank you so much for being here. It's Thursday, which means it's the Upload VR Gamescast, our weekly podcast going over all the latest content news in VR. Sometimes we talk about the tech stuff, but usually that's on Monday for Ian and Harry to talk about. No, you're Harry. Ian and he need to talk about. I've got COVID. It's okay. Um, While we're here, let's give a massive thank you to our members. They are Lucas Longacre, who's new. Thank you, Lucas. Good to see you.
Hello, Lucas.
Uh, Anthony Mann Wexford, Robert Canonas times two, Handy Panama, Daniel Bowen, Jerome Houston, Andrew King, Skeever007, Sexy Bicycle, Matteo May, Rick Tet 360 Pickable, Smash Reality, Adam Hartzell, the absolute boy, and John Westrat. Thank you so much. Your continued support means so very, very, very much to us. If you'd like to consider supporting, become a member on YouTube. Buy a mug on download. Don't just buy any mug. Buy a mug in the YouTube thing. Harry, how's your week been?
Pretty good. Not too bad. What about you? You've been very busy playing lots of games, things that are coming
Yeah.
out at the same time.
See, this was the thing about having COVID. I was like, it's all right. It won't be too busy of a week. I'll probably get Cosmonious code early and I'll probably get Moss code early and I'll just kind of gradually play them throughout the week. There probably won't be any of big announcements. And then we've had like 5 game release dates, the showcase, which we'll talk about in a second. And the Moss Route 2 review code came in last night, ladies and gentlemen. So it's been fun.
Yeah, busy,
Do I
busy
sound
period.
do I sound nasally? Do I sound any different to you?
Not particularly. No, you sound pretty, COVID free. So you're
Yeah.
COVID free passing, I think. But
Okay. Well, that's good for the public masses. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Self isolate. Let's get into the news. And we are kicking off with a pretty big story for this week. The Meta Gaming Showcase is coming back.
It's back.
Roughly a year after the first one, almost a year to the day, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the
This,
21st was the first one, so like pretty
yeah,
much a year.
yeah, which is we'll get to that in a second. But so if you don't know, this is like Meta's take on the digital showcase that everyone in the games landscape does these days. They're going to be showing brand new Quest games, giving updates on some announced games. We've already got some confirmation of titles that are going to be there, which is Among Us VR, Cities VR, and the developers at Tripwire have teased that they're going to be there too. Which might mean either Aspire 1 or Killing Floor or something like that. Yeah, and it's taking place April 20th at 10 a.m. PT. I am pretty excited about this. I feel like last year's show, if you reflect on it, wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And I feel like they have a lot of ground to gain. I said on Twitter earlier this week, this is kind of probably the last time they're going to get to have their own big spotlight without
Totally.
PSVR 2 taking up
Yeah.
too much of the conversation. And it feels like it really is time to be like, okay, this headset's been out for a year and a half. Developers are really kind of getting to grips with it now and trying to push the graphics, trying to push the complexity of their titles. Here's the goods, right?
Yeah, here are the big things. I think too, from memory, a lot of the stuff that was shown last year, even if in this world that we're coming into with PSVR 2, a lot of the stuff they showed last year I feel like was multi-platform or not Quest exclusive stuff. I could be wrong on that front, but from memory, a lot of it was like, a Pistol Whip update, which was also coming to
Yeah.
PCVR and every headset. I feel like I really want to see if this is the Quest gaming showcase, I want to see that Quest exclusive stuff. For me, the big one is GTA. I want
Yeah.
something on that. I want some footage of it in VR. I think too, there's a lot the timing was kind of weird on that announcement because that was around the time that the dodgy-ish remaster kind of came out that had all those problems. And I feel like people were like, is this going to be a version of that? Because I think the way it works is that like the latest version of San Andreas, the one that they've like updated for that remaster, came from the mobile port because it was the same company
Yeah.
working on it. So when you're playing the PS5 version, it's technically like the PC version turned into a mobile port, turned into the PS5. It's been the same. And I think everyone was like, is it going to be that version? How does that work? I feel like the timing in that was a little bit odd in that it was like seemingly disconnected from the remaster at the same time. I want to see more. I want to know. I want to see what it's going to look like. Is it going to use the remaster thing in any way? I don't know. I have no clue, but I want to see something on that. To me, that's the big one.
I think it has to be there. I like it absolutely has to be there. It's going to
Yeah.
be the big thing of the show if it is. I
Yeah.
don't think it will be connected to those games because I think if you look at what Meta and Armature did with Resident Evil 4,
Yeah.
there is
It's
an
a whole different thing.
there is an existing remaster of Resident Evil 4 as well, but they
Yeah.
actually went in and did a better job
Yeah.
remastering the game than Capcom itself ever did. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
probably going to be hopefully the case here as well. They'll go in and
Hopefully.
do a better job of remastering the game than
Yeah.
Rockstar did last year. I thought, like GTA is absolutely the number one staple thing they have to be that has to be there because going like back to the PSVR 2 thing, you're going to have pretty soon. You're going to have PSVR coming out and saying, Resident Evil, Gran Turismo, all looking really, really flashy, and having
Big
that GTA
franchises.
name in the
Yeah.
lineup is one of the few chances they're going to have to hit back and
Yeah.
actually have some competition in that. But
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, there's a lot we could see, right? Like Assassin's Creed is
That was the other one I was going
still,
to say. Yeah.
Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell are still
It's
very
been
much,
ages too.
yeah. It's getting on for 2 years since they were both announced.
Yeah, it
now?
was. I think it
Definitely
was
2
like.
years since I remember.
I think it was Connect. It was Connect 2020. So we're
Yeah.
coming up on like it's a year and a half, coming up on 2 years, and we've heard nothing. That's the weird part,
Yeah.
and it makes me think like if that's been a year and a half, we've heard nothing, and GTA was just last October. The other like we've now had Connects where things have been announced and never mentioned again
Yeah.
twice, and I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
you've got to show something here. Don't save it for Connect. I want to see something now.
It felt
Make
like
this worth its time.
It felt like the ink was very fresh, wasn't yet dry on
Yeah.
those deals when they announced it, right? Because
Yeah.
there was so much hiring going on around when those projects were announced as well. That was like, wow, you really are talking about this just as you're getting it off the ground. So I actually still wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see it now. I think maybe we're going to be waiting another year or maybe more. But elsewhere. There's Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Retribution. There's whatever Stress Level Zero, another developer that's been away for
Yeah.
absolutely ages. And I feel like probably should be there again.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a really interesting show. I hope.
I hope. And they just kind of said we're making a Quest game. That was the same deal 2 years ago at Connect.
Yeah.
And then it's
Yeah.
like we've heard nothing since. Oh, not nothing. They've been like, yeah, we're still working on a Quest game. I think a couple of times, like it's still happening, but there's been nothing besides that. And it's supposedly a Boneworks spin-off Quest game too, very specifically, which is huge. That game was had a huge following, and you would like to think that, I don't know, surely at this point we could hear something or see something. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. And things like Walking Dead, for me, it's like that'd be nice, but again, that isn't Quest exclusive, right? That's for all platforms.
Yeah, true.
And so that's also something that will come to PSVR 2, if
And
PSVR 2 launched into the year. Yeah.
This will be the blurriest version of it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I feel like I really want to see, like, there's got to be at least one big, this is only on Quest, this is why you buy a Quest thing. Because I feel like a lot of last year was like, the overwhelming thing I remember was the Pistol Whip update, and there was the Walking Dead. Was it Aftershocks that I think it was Aftershocks.
Yeah, and then there was like an update for the Climb 2. There was only one actually genuinely new game announcement last year, which was Carve Snowboarding, which was I actually really like that game, but it's not like
but it's
huge
not
megaton.
It's not show stopping.
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's just so interesting because and then on top of all of that, they've got the studios they own, so good chance we see something new from Population 1 there, probably. I'd be really interested to see if there's any surprise announcements from Ready at Dawn, given Lone Echo 2 took so long and was on Rift. Have they had
Yeah.
something else cooking away for Quest in that time? Onward 2, Zuckerberg confirmed nearly a year ago now. So that's got to be a thing that's probably
The old
revealed pretty
comment
soon.
section confirmation.
Yeah. And I think, last week we were talking about how annoying it is that things like the games we're looking forward to in the horizon actually end up just releasing a couple of weeks away from when you think they're going to be months away. They end up just releasing out of the blue almost. And
I swear,
I feel
they just go, GTA is available now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, can you imagine? Oh, don't even. Oh
Yeah.
no, you've scared me.
No, there's no way. Surely not. There's no way. I don't even want to consider
Please,
that.
Mark, if you're watching,
Yeah.
first of all, hi. Second of all, don't please please release it in September and tell us.
Or please market
Tell
the
us
game.
this week. Yeah,
Yeah, for any amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really excited because for that reason, we're going to have a view of the landscape for the next couple of months out, hopefully, which is what we don't have that right now. We are just going week by week, hoping stuff will happen. We know some of the stuff that's coming in April. There's probably 3 or 4 other big releases in April we don't know about yet. And I want a long-term view,
Totally.
especially with Cambria coming, and the idea that maybe you'll be able to play better versions of these towards the end of the year on Cambria, I think is exciting too.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget that won't be the only showcase this year. UploadVR showcase back in June is all I'll say. Plans are being made. I'm writing them furiously on a virtual keyboard. Anyway, that was a terrible segue. Let's move on. 2 release dates for you right now, and I cannot believe what let me take you on a saga. I should have segued with the UploadVR showcase. Let me take you back to the UploadVR showcase in December last year. We announced Cities VR, the spin-off to Skylines from Fast Travel Games. Very exciting. We also showcased Little Cities, which was got up on Stevie the TV right now. Published by Endreams, developed by a studio called Purple Yonder. Much smaller, calmer looking, well, maybe not smaller, but much calmer looking city building sim. And the chat was like, "Ooh, these two are going head to head, aren't they?"
Yeah.
Both releasing spring exclusively on Quest. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Today, they both announced their release dates 3 hours apart, and the release dates are a week apart. So Little Cities is coming out on April 21st, and Cities VR is coming out April 28th. Why?
Does someone at Meta hate these studios? What?
So if you don't know, I feel like it's on good record right now that Meta has a lot of say in when people release their games. It's not like anyone's just like, "Hey, my game's ready. Can it come out this Thursday?"
They want to schedule things out,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're very, along with their curation, they're very, very protective. So someone at Meta looked at this and was like, "Yeah, fine,"
Yeah, it's so weird, and it's weird because it feels like the scheduling thing that you just mentioned is intentionally there to stop things like this happening. That's what I would say it's there for, or to be like, well, we've got this massive release coming up this day, so we won't put this on the same day. We'll do it a week later or 2 weeks later or whatever. That's what I feel like it's there for, and sometimes has worked that way in the past. Then other times you've had situations where a massive game, I think it was like Resident Evil came out and there was 2 other things that came out the same day, and you kind of go, why did that happen?
Unplugged came out on the same day.
Yeah, that's right. Which is they're 2 really huge games. And I guess Unplugged was multi-platform, so it's a bit different. Although at launch was it? No, it wasn't.
Only Quest. Yeah,
no,
just Quest.
So never mind. And then this, you kind of go, I don't know. They look very similar. They are in concept the same genre. Why are they coming out? It's a week apart.
Yeah, it's
man.
It's 1 week.
Who's first?
So Little Cities is first, which I'm glad to hear about. So let's just do this. Underdog wise, I'm like, go Little Cities, because it's not. Too now. It's not it's not tied into this giant franchise, and it's this smaller indie published thing. Whereas Fast Travel, who are a great team, made a lot of great games over in Stockholm. are going to have like the backing of Paradox Interactive, who is publishing the project and tying in by association. They've got a lot of tried and true elements to the game right there. Whereas this is a from the ground up for
Yeah.
VR thing through and through and through. And the interesting thing to say about that is, even with the underdog thing considered, both of them put out new trailers today, and I'm going to put the Cities VR one
Yeah,
on
put
the
that
screen right now, so
yeah.
we'll talk it over for audio listeners as usual. This says it's showing Quest 2 development footage. It's the first time I've seen some of it. It might be old footage. It might be like from last year or something like
Yeah.
that. But I don't know why you do that if that is the case,
Yeah,
because there is
surely not.
extraordinary popping going on in the trailer.
Man.
Loads and loads and loads and loads.
Loads.
So as you kind of like glide over a cityscape, and it's not game, it is gameplay, but it's not like the in-game camera. It's like a fake trailer camera or whatever. As you
Yeah.
glide over the cityscape, trees are popping in and out, going to various levels of
Shadows.
detail, completely disappearing. At one point,
Shadows.
they go over a river. I don't know if you see it. It's like right at the start. I might try and start it again just so we can catch it. Actually, they're going over this river, and you can see struts on the river. And as you get closer, one of the struts
bridge.
actually disappears, and it's so weird and distracting. But it's not. So it's not this one. But yeah, the cities are just completely transforming around you, and that's a common technique on Quest that people do to like manage their games and get them running well.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that it's just so prevalent in this trailer right here.
Yeah.
Ready. There it goes.
See, that kind of stuff is just, I don't know, it really confuses me too, because it's, part of me is like, if this is what it looks like playing it, because also, you say this is a fake game trailer, but a trailer camera, but I think it's also not necessarily. I think it's just you, like if I was in the world at this scale and I was pressing up or whatever on or that's just how you would be kind of going through the world, right? So you presume that it would look the same.
If anything, you'll be faster if you've got your head in the world.
Yeah.
Throwing it about.
Yeah, like a little bit like this shot where it's faster. But man, and part of me, I remember seeing some earlier footage of this and going, the buildings look a bit like, not great up close. And so it kind of, what I think baffles me though a little bit is that the game was never, like the original game was not really intended to be played like up close in the streets, which is fine. So it kind of makes me wonder why there's so many shots of you being up close in this, as if they want you to be like that, even though they say, it's not really like go down at street level. That's not how, we've not designed it that way. But a lot of the shots are at street level in this trailer, or closer than I would expect. It feels like if I wouldn't be emphasizing that, and Little Cities does less of that, I feel like, in their trailer. And also, I would be optimizing everything to work for this view, and maybe just go, hey, you can't zoom in anymore. Or, this is, you're looking down like a diorama, like we said with Tentacular, that kind of diorama level thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're totally right. But I'm just, as you're talking there, I'm looking at all the things you're saying, and just, there is what you would describe as an impressive amount of detail going into the game design. So there are, cars on the streets, there are people walking around, there's like pets and everything like that. And it's
this
cool
shot
that it's there.
Why are we so close? Like,
it's but I mean, I feel like part of, did you ever try Google Earth VR?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah, people loved scaling down into that, even though it was blurry, right? Because you still get some sort of weird sense of,
I guess so,
being there. And I feel like I will definitely want to scale down into my city just for like a look around at what I've built, and to like walk the streets and feel like I've made it to some sense. But often when we see popular games like ported to mobile, you get some sort of stylized graphics approach to kind of like compensate for the fact you're not going to be able to get the same kind of horsepower out of it. And that's just, this very much seems to have taken the PC aesthetic and then just been like, okay, let's paper mache this stuff until it runs on Quest, because like let's get layers of paper and just over the crisp graphics and just smoosh it all over the buildings.
Yeah, and there are effects that are definitely like, direct transfers from the PC stuff, like the building of pipes and the overlays, which is obviously intentional because they want to make it feel like that original game, but
Yep.
it feels like more than just that's the worst pop in for me. The camera moves like basically doesn't move, and this
Yeah.
shadow just appears out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But it feels like to me they've really taken the PC version and been like, let's just cut everything by like a 16th and then put it on Quest.
So
It's just, I don't know. Yeah, I wish it had been a bit more stylized, like
yeah.
Little Cities looks, I think.
So I think the question then is like we're going to be bracing ourselves for that kind of technical performance, but if the actual bones of city skylines are still in there and all
Yeah.
work, is that still going to be a compelling experience? Do you think?
Yeah, and it looks like they are, and they did a gameplay stream, which admittedly, when I watched the stream that they did a week and a half ago, I was kind of skipping through it. It didn't strike me as quite as the pop in and stuff. It didn't really seem as
Yeah.
noticeable, which I think is because they were playing the game more zoomed out, and you're kind of looking down and
Right. Yeah.
moving less, and there's less, it's less like a trailer. So maybe it'll be less of a problem. But it did also look like they had all those. They were very insistent that like the simulation of city skylines is being simulated here. It's the same things you would expect on a smaller scale, but the
Yeah.
level of like I can't remember his name, but one of the devs was basically like,
Oh, that was Eric. I think Eric Odedar.
yeah, I think maybe, yeah. And he was like, he's like, it is not a beginner's experience for VR. It is like, there's a big tutorial. You're going to have to really, if you haven't played, even if you've played City Skylines, but if you haven't played a city building game, it's going to take you a while to understand. So that makes me think that there is a real depth there. I think it might be a story of maybe this looks better, but maybe doesn't have as depth. I would love to see this have as much depth,
Yeah.
Little Cities, but I think, that might be how it ends up playing out
Yeah.
between the two.
And that might be a great thing at the end of the day. There might
Yeah.
be enough difference in the two of them that Little Cities does have its own merits to talk about, especially on the visual front. It definitely looks better visually.
This is the Little
it's
Cities
just night
trailer
and day.
now.
Yeah,
It just
'cause
looks. It looks bottom up, like they've made it for Quest, right? They've not taken a PC
Yeah.
game. I think that's the key
Yeah,
difference.
exactly.
Yeah,
And I feel like what will happen on the Cities VR front is if it comes out like that and it does perform like that, we're still going to see a PC and PSVR2 version that is actually the version you should play, right?
yeah. I hadn't considered that, but maybe, yeah, I can
It
see
feels
that.
I feel like it's going to come out everywhere,
Surely, yeah,
and on PC that will be where it
yeah,
actually finds a home and is really
yeah.
good. And maybe if you have a Quest, maybe you should wait to do the Link version rather than trying to play the native version. But we'll see.
I mean,
It's going to be fascinating.
even looking at this, I think one thing I've just noticed is like if we're talking about complexity, this doesn't even seem to have curved roads, right? It's isometric.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah,
City
true.
Skylines is very much like build your own city. There's an element to when you play City Skylines of like build the city to work well for infrastructure, but also you can just design it to look. You can go, I want this area to be high density on the coast, so there's big skyscrapers on the coast. I want smaller buildings inland. I want all the factories over here. There's more kind of you can plan the way it looks, even though you don't personally go in and like pick each building. You know how the buildings kind of build up. And so there's a visual element of like, I'm building my city to look nice like this, which is interesting given I wonder if that will be something that transfers of like, you can put high density, low density things in different areas, make a kind of visual style to a city. Whereas perhaps this is more just focusing on delivering services, putting
Yeah.
things
We
in the
need a
right
hospital.
areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Building a hospital, building a park, making sure there's enough parks in the area, that kind of thing. But less about the kind of you can put your roads however you want them or curve them or edit the terrain, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's super interesting how these will play out, I think. Tale of two
yeah.
cities.
Oh my god. Oh, that was perfect.
There we
That
go.
was so perfect.
There we
So,
go.
we were talking earlier. It looks like clearly you have experience of it. So it looks like you'll probably be the one talking about both of those like later
Yeah.
next month. Probably both
Yeah.
reviews. Probably some sort of comparison on the two as well.
Yeah.
Look forward to that. Moving on
Very
to our
excited.
last story of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Cloudhead Games is finally developing things other than Pistol Whip.
Yes.
Sorry, Ian, but that's just how it is, and that's how we want it
We've
to
been
be.
waiting. Yep.
So developers of Pistol Whip, as I said, and the Gallery series from back at VR kind of launch era kind of stuff, put out a blog post earlier this week saying, first of all, that Pistol Whip is getting mod support at some point, and their next update, I think it's called like contracts or something like that. So
Mhm.
more content to come from Pistol Whip, but
As
they're
always.
also hinting that, yeah, they're kind of returning, I guess, to the like they use the term, they hid the term not so subtly, AAA in their blog post. But then Denny from Cloudhead tweeted out later on that, he's talking more about like the quality of interaction and stuff like that. That as opposed to like they're not going to be making like a Red Dead Redemption 2 or something like that. But I'm excited to see them finally back to hopefully some story driven epic content. The gallery was an episodic thing. First episode, very, very short, but very, very promising. Second one came out a couple of years later, was much bigger, much more of a traditional gaming experience, but again, ended on a cliffhanger. So I'm really, really hoping we see the gallery episode 3 from them. You probably haven't played the gallery, right? Oh,
No, it was kind of before my VR time. So
yeah,
no, I kind of my first Cloudhead experience was Pistol Whip, but I have played a fair bit of Pistol Whip. I enjoy it. I always think it's a good experience to put people into, even though it kind of has the motion. It's a really, I find it's a very easy one to put people into as a demo, and people get it very quickly. I think that's one of their strengths is they kind of have designed it so that
yeah,
you kind of just know what to do. And then there's also levels of it too, where people will play it and just kind of shoot things, and you can be like, oh no, you can shoot on the beat. Then they start to. There's a whole learning process that happens a bit naturally. I think that's really smart about the way they've designed Pistol Whip. So I'm excited to see, using those lessons, branching out into
yeah.
something with a bit more kind of depth. Yeah,
And the interesting thing about Pistol Whip was always that Cloudhead was very open about the idea of when it was in development, they were very conscious of the fact that no, it wasn't the Gallery episode 3 or this big, huge, epic adventure thing. And it was them saying, yeah, we've kind of learned that kind of stuff isn't super sustainable right now. And actually, the
yeah,
better idea is to do what Superhot did and what Beat Saber did and have something that doesn't cost tons and tons and tons of money to make. I'm sure it was very expensive, but it wasn't as
yeah, but
expensive as other
relatively,
projects.
yeah, comparatively,
Yeah, bring it in, like really support it until it's like getting in very, very decent amount of revenue, which as we saw from, various reports throughout the year of how Quest games were doing, it's always been a well-performing game. And
yeah.
then you've kind of got that cash cow you can keep milking to some extent while you wait for the user bases to grow out and you get back to the projects that you were kind of dreaming of when you started the studio, right?
It almost feels like the Beat Saber model had Beat Saber not been bought by Meta. It feels that's
Yes.
like if Beat Saber
Yeah.
had gone on and still been a studio, they would have used that Beat Saber money just to, keep that humming forever and probably done
Yeah,
something else. Maybe
exactly.
they still are doing something else. I'm sure they hopefully must be. But yeah, that feels like
I
that
don't
kind
know.
of that model. So I'm excited. I also think Pistol Whip was one of those games that it was only a few months after Quest 1 launched that it came out, I think, right from memory. It was
It
like I
was
think it was like
so it
September
was
or
I think it was the oh yeah, this is interesting. I'm trying to remember this. I feel like it was the Christmas after it
yeah.
came out, and it launched in like the spring, didn't it? So yeah, it was the same year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And there wasn't much like a whole bunch of stuff at that time because I remember getting my Quest a few months after launch or around launch, and then this is one of the big ones that came out after it, and it was a big deal.
Yeah,
And I feel
yeah,
like that was a really smart timing. Perhaps wasn't even intended, just coincidental, but it feels like it's been one of those staple games like Superhot, Beat Saber that's just been around that everyone kind of knows about now, and it's been updated enough that it's like one of the staple games of the platform, even if it's not
yeah,
exclusive. It just feels
yeah,
like it's one of those, everyone
yeah,
who really has gone through the Quest library knows this game and has probably played it. They got in early enough that it made I think, a big difference the release date there. Yeah.
yeah. So my prediction would be that we'll see the Gallery 1 and 2 remastered, maybe on PSVR 2, and we'll get episode 3.
Mm.
But just super super happy to see these guys getting back into something else because yeah, I this is one of those games, Pistol Whip, that I just completely respect. Just like I
Yeah,
completely respect Beat Saber, but it is just
you don't play it.
never going to be for me. I
Yeah,
am
yeah,
very traditional story-driven gamer type guy.
yeah.
Occasional multiplayer if it really, really hooks me, but mostly, yeah, very much a single-player epic kind of stuff. And I
I
want
think
people to start getting back to that.
Yeah, I think too. What I like about this, or what's I think really important about Pistol Whip in the kind of history of Quest games too, is that although you had Super Hot and stuff that pioneered, I guess, this kind of Quest 2 style where it was very easy to run because it's less kind of
Mm,
less polygons, less going on. This to me felt like the first game where, because Super Hot obviously existed as a game before, it just happened to work. Whereas it feels like they've
yeah,
taken the Super Hot kind of lessons and been like, here's something really still visually very interesting. There's a lot of stuff
yeah,
going on in Pistol Whip, but it still looks really good on Quest. I feel like it was the first game like made. I don't even know if it was made for Quests first off, but it feels like it works, super well as a visual kind of this is what you can
yeah,
do when you don't have to go for realism. And I feel like a lot of
yeah,
games took probably a lot from this. It feels like this really set a
yeah, for
benchmark,
sure.
I think.
It definitely Beat Saber came to PC first as an early access title, and I think there was already this trend of let's do stuff like Beat Saber, but
Yeah.
as Quest got closer and closer, it was becoming more and more obvious that it was going to be a pretty important platform
Yeah.
going forward. And I think it only took a couple of months of Quest being out for everyone to be like, okay, we really need to like skew towards this platform.
Yeah.
Um, and that's definitely, yeah, I definitely think it was in the plans there. It released at a very good time for Quest, that's for sure.
I
Like you
mean,
said.
even Beat Saber looks good on Quest. I wouldn't say it looks fantastic. And I do remember when around those months after Quest launch, around when this came out, there was people online talking about, they were like, Beat Saber plays, but it doesn't look as good. Like,
Mm,
still playable, you should get it. It's great. But like, even I still noticed that the walls and stuff they're basically empty now. I think it even got visually downgraded from launch from memory.
yeah,
They took the walls used to be more opaque and now they're not. But stuff like that, I feel like, Beat Saber does play. It doesn't look the greatest on Quest. To be
yeah.
fair, the new environments look pretty good. But I would also like to see Beat Saber do something else with the complexity of this in terms of visuals,
Well, have you
or I don't
have you
know,
tried out the
something
new lighting?
else. Where's
What
that the
about the
most
new
recent
stuff?
update?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
So
I
it's
haven't
out.
tried that yet. I mean, me jumping into it. Is that for the new level or did it overhaul everything?
I think the lighting might have been put back into older levels. The new
Right.
gameplay mechanics are only for new tracks, but also there's
Yeah.
the Fallout Boy pack, which is out today as well. Which I wasn't going to mention because what do you say other than why isn't We're
Is
going
that out
swinging
today,
on
is
that?
it?
It's out today. So
Ah,
there's
cool.
there's a lot to
Yeah.
get through, but
Gotta
yeah,
go.
no, we might be doing some more coverage of that in the
Yeah.
next week or so. It comes out
Yeah.
again. Just announced it was coming, and then before you know it, it's
And then
out.
it just came. Yep.
that is that is the news for this week. We have got two reviews for you for the end of the week, and they're pretty big ones. We're going to start off with Cosmonious High, which is the new game from Alchemy Labs.
I've got it.
You'll know them from Job Simulator. You'll know them from Vacation Simulator, Rick and Morty, Virtual Reality. Long time VR developer. Always had this big focus on comfort, interaction, and all the first timer VR things to make sure that people have a really good, comfortable time, and B kind of really capitalize on some of the strengths of VR and show people immediately what's so cool about the platform. And Cosmonious High is basically their latest version of that formula. You are a kid on the first day of kind of a sci-fi alien school. You go around the school completing tasks like from lessons and just like general activities that you'll find out in the school halls with your classmates. You have superpowers that kind of arise in certain situations. So when there's a fire, you suddenly discover the power to shoot water, which you can take through for the rest
Yeah.
of the game. When something needs resizing, you suddenly discover the power to resize things. Uh, and yeah, you can take that through as well. And yeah, so you have those powers and you have these sets of different missions that earn you credits. More credits you earn, the more you can get into different classes, which means you can earn more powers. And then there's that kind of Metroidvania structure of you can then go back out into the school hall, complete some puzzles that you couldn't complete before.
Yeah.
And there's a
Yeah.
kind of loose narrative going through the game of the school's AI system has gone a bit haywire, and you're kind of like in charge of fixing
Classic.
it all up. Yeah,
Classic
as
AI
school AI
going
systems
haywire.
are
That's
known
all
to
they
do.
do. That's all they do in games.
So I've gone pretty back and forth on Cosmonious High as I've been reviewing it the past couple of weeks, or days, sorry. It's on the one hand, as that kind of introductory VR experience, it's really, really, really good. And it's very much their best version of that yet. So you have some of the alchemy staples, like there's a cooking mini game where you're chopping ingredients, frying them up,
Yeah.
serving them out. You have like some cool artistic elements, like you have a crystal power that's basically tilt brush and you can draw in 3D.
Yeah,
You can
right.
use the water to dip your hands into paint and then paint walls and everything like that. The game has very persistent foundations and rules that mean anytime you do something, you should pretty much get the reaction you would expect to some degree. So if you have the
Mm.
water power and you shoot it at a classmate, they'll gurgle. If you shoot them with
Yeah,
a
that's cool.
like concoction of like helium, they'll gurgle at a high pitched squeak. Or
Yeah, right.
you can cover items in hot sauce and everyone suddenly wants to eat them. Or you can shoot water through your ice power and make ice cubes. And there's loads of cool,
Yeah,
very complex systems that are constantly mashing together in really, really impressive ways that
yeah,
it's just such a cool textured world to be in on that front. And if you are the first time user, it's a teleport only experience. It's really good at talking you through how everything works. There's just such a fun playground here to experiment with. And as you're seeing on this trailer, like also from a technical level, like for a quest game, like painting
yeah.
walls,
It
like
looks
getting everything doused in liquid is
totally.
just mind-blowingly impressive from as a technical achievement.
Yeah,
But it's a hard one to review because you have this skew towards first time VR users, and there has never been a better time to release something for new VR users because Quest has been such a hit and
yeah,
so many new people are joining VR every day. But at the same time, you have this pretty large group of existing VR users that have played Job Simulator, Vacation Simulator, Rick and Morty, have gone on to play, Walking Dead, Boneworks, whatever takes your fancy. And for those people, which obviously includes me and includes you and anyone else
yeah.
on staff, and most people probably watching
Most people
this,
watching, yeah.
yeah, watching, listening, reading our website,
Yeah,
that's not you. The cooking game is something you've done before. The musical stuff is all
yeah,
stuff you've done before. And so there's this one element of it that's a case of diminishing returns. And then there's this other element of all this really cool, complex stuff I'm talking about, like liquids that make items bouncy, so you could just throw them around the room and they'll ricochet everywhere, or
yeah,
liquids that make things stick, so you can just like really anchor them to a point, or the resize power lets you like resize your hands, so then you can use the other powers at different scales.
yeah.
All these really, really, really cool ideas are never actually mandated in the core campaign in any way. The core campaign
Mm,
is mainly just put out the fire with your hands and, throw a ball through a hoop. And,
yeah,
and then here's a credit for that. Here's a credit for this. There's nothing really, really complex to push more advanced players. And
yeah,
I think that's a big shame because I've been using this comparison with the Super Mario games of the first levels of Super Mario games are always incredibly intricate onboarding experiences that are fun
yeah.
for experienced users, but
It's
also
a hidden
let
tutorial.
younger players. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And that goes on for hours, right? Like the
yeah,
first couple of worlds of a Mario game are
yeah.
usually pretty easy to get through. It's
And then
not.
it
It's not
gets
until you're at the
intense.
end. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, I'm sure you've played the last couple of Mario games or whatever.
yeah,
You'll like the harder challenges you do at the end, you get those green star things, right? Where like
mm-hmm.
you've done a really, really hard race course, or you've handled a really hard bit of jumping and they give you a green star as opposed to a gold star, and it's like, yes, I got my
Yeah,
green
yeah,
star
yeah,
objective.
yeah,
I've done some of the hardest stuff in Mario. I really feel like Cosmonious needs its green stars. Like,
yeah,
it needs the extra credit you get for doing something particularly complex or particularly clever that
yeah.
really pushes all these things to their limits. Because as it stands, the game is just going to live or die by your curiosity at the end of the day. How
Mm,
much you want to stand around and experiment and do cool things versus, actually make progress in the game. Because if you want to
yeah.
stand around and experiment, that's fantastic, have fun. But I just wish there was more to actually push you to really get in depth of its systems later on in the game.
And I wonder too, because you've obviously been covering a lot of this game, have talked to the devs, you know a lot about it coming into it. And I wonder too if there's someone who is relatively new to VR, enjoys this as an introductory experience as intended. I wonder if they would then ever actually find the more complex stuff or think about the more complex ways to use things if it's not mandated because
Yep.
they haven't been reading about this game for the last, however long.
Yep.
And so I don't know. And I think with the Mario comparison, it makes me think of Mario Odyssey, which I as a game I love. And I think about how you can go back to areas. And
Hmm.
what's so brilliant about that too is that everything you need for all of the game pretty much is in the first level.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously you can use Cappy to inhabit things in different ways, but that is a mechanic that stays consistent. It's just different things you do with it, and it's like then you can go back and all of a sudden you can go over things, do things differently. You discover harder things. You find areas you didn't know before. You learn how to jump differently because you've got better at the game over, you
Yeah.
know, 20 hours, and then you go back to one of the old worlds and you're like, oh, I can get to this place now. I can use this in a different way. I know what to do. That feels like the kind of thing where you want to go back to an area, like you said before, and go, oh, I can spray this or do this, combine these two things
Yeah.
now. And that gives me a harder challenge that I get
Yeah,
rewarded for in
exactly.
some way. Yeah.
And so yeah, you can go back with those learnings and do those new things. You're not going to get
Not
a
needed.
reward for it.
Don't
And
need to.
and
Yeah.
to your point that like people are going to miss a lot of this stuff. If I hadn't had an interview with Alchemy a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
I don't think I'd have known a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's a really playful game, and genuinely, most of the stuff you do gets some sort of believable reaction. There are a couple of inconsistencies, like you can use the firepower on people and they just stand there with flames on them. You're like, what, can't you at least say
It's a
ow?
slightly unfortunate one to be
Yep.
inconsistent.
Yep. Um, but unless you're just here to play around, like essentially have playtime and be in a playground, you're gonna miss those things, and that's a real
Yeah.
shame. There's things in the game like there's a fully working organ piano um, that you can go to the back of the music class and play around with it, and it's really fun to play around with. But there's nothing in the game that means you actually have to use it ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, why have you built such a cool, intricate thing and then not thought of it like at like 3 or
Like
4
hide an
mission types?
achievement in the
Yeah,
piano even. Like
yeah,
find something.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think
and go on.
no, I was just gonna say too, I think the only other thing I would say is that we know that Job Simulator, particularly Job Simulator, has for some reason stayed at the top of the PSVR charts
Mm.
for an insufferable almost amount of time. It's always there. It's been years now, and
Yeah,
I do feel like perhaps, I mean, obviously that doesn't change or excuse the like problems slash not having that higher level, but I feel like Job Simulator is getting old now. PSVR 2 is on the horizon,
yeah,
slash
that's
Quest
a good
2 is
point.
a new system. This is their version of Job Simulator. Perhaps they're trying to be like, well, we're updating essentially Job Simulator as a new game. This is our new version of the game. It's going to sit at the top of the charts for 5 years
Yeah,
as the equivalent of Job Simulator for every kid that gets a PSVR 2 later this year. And there's an
yeah,
Among Us thing in there. So they're all going to
that's very true.
find that.
That
And did you find the Among Us,
Oh, I
whatever their name
found
are?
2 of them. I don't know if there was more than 2, but I
Oh,
definitely
there's
found
more.
2.
Oh, so they're actually like different ones hidden in different
Yeah, hidden
areas.
around.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, right.
That is a really great observation, and it does have a like those elements do have a hint of that kind of remastered touch
Yeah,
to them. And I say at the start of my written review, you could totally now swap one of these 2 games out, either Job or Vacation Simulator, and have this as one of your new first VR games. I actually opened the review saying this would be an amazing packing game for the Quest headset. Like the
Yeah.
first thing you do when you
Yeah.
get a quest, this would
Feels like Quest
absolutely
should
be a cool
have
game for
something
that.
like this that
Yeah.
evolves first steps. Because weirdly, I still put people in first steps when I give them a headset because it's the easiest way to be like, this is the basics and this is what you do. If there was something a bit more complex like this that still had that onboarding process where they can play 10, 15 minutes and go, oh, okay, I kind of get how to use VR now. That's a bit, first steps is showing its age now. I feel like I want something a bit
Yeah.
kind of more like
Yeah.
this, a bit more visually interesting, a bit more doing some more interesting things. So yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I
Yeah.
wish this was kind of yeah.
So that's what I want to see from Alchemy next, because they're very clear about what they want to do with VR. They're not going to do a violent game, which I think is great. I completely respect. They are always going to be very clear about what they want to do with comfort. So don't ever expect smooth locomotion or anything like that. Which again, I completely champion. I love that there
Yeah.
are games that are just like that, because we working at Upload, we listen to a lot of very vocal people about issues that might not actually be a big thing for the vast majority of VR users, like the
Yeah.
absence of smooth locomotion in games and stuff like that. So, but I want their next thing to be a really good marriage of that onboarding stuff and something for
Yeah,
all the
totally.
people that have been around since, because this could be such an innovative and incredible puzzle game, and it has all those ingredients. It's just
Yep.
it never forces you to use them in the right way.
Yep.
So that is Cosmonious High. That's out today on Quest and Steam VR. And we're going to move on to our second game, which is coming to PSVR. And
Yes,
that,
for now.
yes, for now, yeah, it's definitely coming elsewhere. This, we're going to try this as a review, but I literally beat Moss
Just
2
finished
about an
it.
hour and a
Yeah.
half ago. So
Yeah.
things are still formulating in
Pending.
my
Thoughts
head.
pending.
Yeah. This is a long awaited sequel. If you played the first Moss, it's kind of that diorama Astrobot kind of experience where you're guiding a young mouse called Quill through levels. You have a presence in the world as the reader, which means that you're this kind of supernatural ghostly presence that can wave to Quill, lean in, interact with her, and form a connection and play a part in the story itself, not just be a camera, which is always such a really cool idea. Moss, when it released ungodly amount of years ago now, was always this thing of, it was a lovely surprise in terms of its quality and that connection with Quill. But because it was just a few hours long, maybe you could probably do it in less than 2 hours if you're experienced with VR. It felt like just those first steps for something bigger, and Polyarch was very much promising this is the something bigger. And where I landed with it is definitely a really satisfying sequel that is still not on the absolute epic scale side
Yeah.
of things. It is a bigger game. It is a more complex, deeper game, but I would not say it is those things on a massive scale. It's still very much a recognizable
Mm.
Moss game. So
It is a book 2 as opposed to a
yeah,
yeah. Is it
yeah, it
longer?
really so that's the thing. It's I did it in one sitting, and that sitting was 4.5 hours long.
Right.
So it is longer.
Yeah.
I think my first playthrough of Moss would have come in at 2.5 hours probably. Um, you pick up right at the end of the last game in this giant castle that Quill spent the entire first game traveling to. You are on the hunt for these kind of precious gems called the glass, but once you see them all, you're like, okay, those are the Infinity Stones. But fine,
Yeah.
you do you.
Quill is Thanos.
Yeah, basically, and yeah, you're on the hunt for those. You want to go around the world, kind of gathering up some allies against some of the bigger nasties out there, and just trying to prevent the kind of catastrophe that comes about when you gather 5 magical gemstones together, as we've all
Mm.
seen in the
And
cinema
then
before.
Robert Downey Jr. appears and he's like, stop that.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
gameplay wise, the first half of the game is really, really, really familiar. So you have your sword, you are running around environments, mashing the square button to take down enemies, mainly the same enemies from the first game. You're seeing in the trailer right now, reaching in with the DualShock 4, grabbing objects to move them about, all that kind of very cool basic stuff that we've seen before. You know, slipping on a comfy pair of old slippers feels great to be back, sort of stuff. Without spoiling anything, things transpire in the second half of the game where you start to see more new elements like new weapons, and a couple of new enemy types. And that's where the game starts to get really, really interesting. And you get, first of all, there's a hammer type that they've that revealed in the past, which again is on the screen right now, and you can do some really cool things like you leave a phantom hammer basically that you can then reach in to activate yourself when Quill's at a safe distance. So you get kind of like this kind of almost tactical edge to the combat. And then there's this throwable scythe-like weapon as well, which is really, really fun to use and has a special power that gets stuck in a wall before you call it back. So you kind of use it for like puzzles, where if you need a certain target somewhere, you kind of like stick it in a wall, run to a location where on its way back it will hit that target. And that
right.
that actually comes with some really, really clever puzzles that I was stuck on for a good 20 to 30 minutes before I sat and actually looked at the level, worked out what I had to do, and got like a really satisfying sense of reward from
Yep.
pulling off the puzzles. So, and that then extends into the combat where, like I was saying, you've got that one element of the new hammer, you've got this new scythe, you've got a new enemy where you can kind of pinball them. So you grab them to stun them, and then you pull back on the controller, and it kind of slingshots them about. And some of the arenas are like even designed so that if you slingshot them up a wall, they'll follow a path that then knocks an enemy out. It's just really cool explorations of how this kind of combat can actually be different in VR, because mechanically, yes, you've got Quill, but you are also a tool yourself.
Yep.
And it works really, really well. On the note of the length and just how familiar it is to the first game, it still feels like it's kind of testing the waters again. You said, it really does feel like a book too, like just then. And that is a great way of summarizing it. It is very much still not this massively, massively, massively overproduced production that you're going to go in and sink 20 hours into. There's not, a massive progression system where you like unlock new stats or upgrade weapons and swords or anything like that. But that's still kind of okay when you've got this really great condensed 5-hour experience that offers some really amazing moments, not just in terms of those puzzles and the combat, but also particularly towards the end as you're ramping up to that more kind of cinematic boss action. They really play on VR in some really, really interesting ways. And the story itself, I've never been I like Moss 1, but I'm not too keen on the whole angle of tiny animals go to war. I've always felt like whatever, like, or like dark fantasy, like Labyrinth and stuff like that. It's very much that vibe, right? Like, you're riding a squirrel into combat, and you're like, I gotta say, I don't really think that looks as cool as some people think it. But with that in mind, I actually think there's some really great twists in the story of Moss 2, and it definitely capitalizes on that emotion and that connection you built with Quill in the first game in a lot of ways that you aren't going to be expecting. There are some plot points that are out there that like it's the expected like emotional highs and lows, but there are also some really interesting twists to the lore, to the point where they're reading this storybook to you and saying, "Oh, the harpy creature was cursed for 1,000 years, and now it hates you," or whatever. And at the start of the game, I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, just get on with this weirdness." And then halfway through, I'm like, but who's this character that's in the
Mm,
back of this page? What's this guinea pig doing with like a giant mead mug? Wow, you look cool. Maybe there's going to be a game about you someday. Because
yeah,
they're definitely doing the whole MCU thing of wanting to build out like different
the
interesting
Moss
characters.
universe
Yeah, well,
with
yeah,
starring
that's definitely
Thanos,
what's happening.
Thanos the
Yeah,
mouse. Yeah, Thanos, destroyer of worlds.
yeah. Basically, yeah, by phase 3 and when, VR and AR headsets are actually
When
good
Quill's
in like
getting like
20 years
60
from
million a game and like, they're paying her big money.
So they are building out an interesting world, and again, similar to the first game, this kind of ends on some cliffhangers where you're like, "Oh, I'm very interested to see
Yeah.
where they take this in the future." So, not the essential masterpiece that I think this series can definitely become at some point, but definitely a step up from the first game,
Mm,
and definitely something that you try not to do what I did, which was to play it all in one sitting. Obviously, I was doing it for review. Try and
yeah.
like realize when you've maybe spent an hour in it, and it's a good time to take a break, go and reflect on it for a while or something like that,
Yeah.
and just savor it because there's probably not going to be another Moss game for another 2 or 3 years again,
Yeah.
and it's really really fun.
My only question is, given what you've said about how it kind of feels like a bit of a continuation with some different stuff, let's say they
Mhm.
either released it or you just played Moss 1, then went straight into Moss 2 and played it as if it's one thing. Would it feel
Mhm.
like a complete package, or would it feel like you played Moss 1, then the first hour of Moss 2, you're like, oh, I'm doing the same thing because they're retreading water to get almost as if people haven't played
Yeah.
the first one to kind of get them up to speed? Because I imagine some people might just, if this comes out on Quest, might just buy this one and, Do you think
So
it's designed to be played as one?
I feel like inevitably when they release the PSVR 2 port, they should only sell 1 and 2 together, right?
Yeah.
Like it should just be this
Moss,
thing that
the
you
complete
do
book.
experience.
Yeah.
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 That you because it really there's not too much of that onboarding stuff.
Right.
There is some of it. It will teach you the basics again for sure.
Yeah.
Um
But you
and
could kind of
there's a
just go from one
recap.
to the other, basically.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it gets the start of this game feels like where you were at the end of the last game in terms
Yeah.
of
Okay.
it's still throwing some good puzzles and some like decent waves of enemies
Yeah.
at you. And then the end half of the game, like I said, is where it starts throwing some really, really new stuff at you. So
Mhm.
I think you could, and especially given how quick Moss One is, you could definitely roll the two in together. And in some senses, I kind of wish I'd got to like do it that way in the first place. But
Mm.
I absolutely think, yeah, you could do them together, and that they should be paired like that from now on, basically.
Do you think we'll see Moss Book 3 and then complete Moss book, or
Oh,
do you
I
think?
think I think we're going to see a lot of Moss in the future. I think
Yeah.
Polyarc have made hints that they're into AR development, and last time I was speaking to them, they were like, "Oh, we have this amazing IP in Moss to do all these different things we want to do. Just not even just in VR and AR, but beyond VR and
Yeah.
AR." So
Moss the
I think we're
Netflix
going to be.
series.
Yeah, well, quite honestly,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Like that,
Yeah.
maybe a flat screen game,
Yeah.
animation, everything like
A
that. I think we're
Pokemon
going to
Go
see.
game that's just the same Pokemon Go game, but you're collecting
Yeah,
different mice. Yeah.
yeah.
Walk
Which
with
is
Moss in AR and
mm,
collect some leaves.
well, I think the thing will be like a Moss game where she's like climbing your couch, right? That's probably what's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the interesting thing is them saying that about the IP and everything like that. I think everyone likes Moss a lot. I think it's a really
Yeah.
really great game. I don't know if it has the legs to transcend beyond VR. That would be something really interesting
Mm.
because, like I said, I think there's some good twists in this one, and it got me into the lore a lot more than I thought it would. But it is
Yeah.
still, you know,
It's still that
birds
type of
with
game. Yeah.
leaf helmets.
A little bit like Ori almost to me. It gives me
Yeah, kind
Ori,
of Ori, Fern
Blind
Gully, if
Forest.
you remember
Yeah.
Fern Gully.
Yeah. Yes I do. Yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of
Interesting.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So
Cool,
that's
cool,
Moss 2
cool.
out today on PSVR 2. PSVR 1. PSVR 2 is not out. You can't play it there.
Can you play it
And
on
you are,
PlayStation 5?
yeah, you can. And they say there's better load times and a bit better visuals
And do you have
But
to use the DualShock 4? Yeah, you can't use the
yeah, you
DualSense,
do.
can
Yeah,
you?
so
Yeah.
it's a hassle to set up. It's funny if you look at Twitter today, most gaming VR influencers are like, "Oh, I really don't want to set up my PSVR again."
Yeah,
So
mine's in a cupboard. I just use it so infrequently that I would like put it in a cupboard now. I'm like, no, it's the box and
it feels like a pre-launch for the game in that sense. Like most people are going to want to play it on PSVR 2 or Quest,
Yeah.
or PC, obviously.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of another thrilling edition of the VR Gamescast. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here every Thursday, and we've been doing that pretty consistently recently, so I can say that.
Yeah.
I've been Jamie. I won't have COVID this time next week, hopefully.
Hopefully
So
not.
we can have a more energetic, sprightly
You've
podcast where
been
we
pretty sprightly
get
for a
fight.
COVID-bound person. I mean,
Yeah,
given
I
it's
think
your...
my neighbors upstairs might be complaining that I'm talking so loud at 11 p.m. as well, but
Oh,
whatever.
well, you know, things have to be done.
Harry, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
See you
Lead
next
good
week.
lives until then.